Hello, and welcome to the 17th episode of LGBTQIA+, Heroes, Icons, Legends, and Events. This series of programs covers a wide variety of topics, such as entertainers Dolly Parton, Freddie Mercury, and Laverne Cox, social reformer Florence Nightingale, and artist and activist Gilbert Baker. The Rainbow Honor Walk is located in the famous Castro neighborhood in San Francisco, California. The landmark spans several blocks and will be expanded in the future. It's an educational memorial that contains bronze sidewalk plaques which honor LGBTQIA+ individuals who have made an impact on society. The walk was created in 2008 by the local community, and it's managed by a 501c3 nonprofit organization which accepts donations to maintain and upgrade the walk. The criteria for nominating and choosing the honorees is straightforward. The nominees must be deceased, self-identified LGBTQIA+ individuals who have made important contributions to society. There are currently 36 bronze plaques along the walk. Let's meet some of the current honorees in alphabetical order. Jane Addams was an American philosopher, sociologist, and women's suffrage leader. In 1931, she became the first American woman to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She was also the founder of the field of social work in the United States. She and Ellen Starr founded the Hull House in Chicago, which was established to promote education, business, recreation, and the arts for the city's most underprivileged populations. African-American ballet dancer and choreographer Alvin Ailey revolutionized modern dance and African-American representation in dance. In 1958, he founded the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, one of the most successful dance companies in the world. His most famous dance piece is Revelations, which has been seen by millions of people around the world. W.H. Auden was an English poet and left-wing political writer known for his poems about love and for his poems with political, social, psychological, and cultural themes. He won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1947 for his poem, The Age of Anxiety. He wrote 3 plays with friend and lover Christopher Isherwood, the author of Goodbye to Berlin, which was the inspiration for the hit musical Cabaret. Josephine Baker was a world-famous entertainer born in the United States who found her greatest fame in France and Europe. She was the first African-American to star in a major motion picture. She was also a spy for the French resistance and a civil rights activist who refused to perform for segregated audiences in the United States. James Baldwin was an African-American novelist, essayist, poet, and playwright who also campaigned for civil rights. His writing dealt with racial and sexual issues in mid-20th century United States. 2 of his most famous works are If Beale Street Could Talk and Giovanni's Room. African-American baseball player Glenn Burke was the first major league player to come out as gay. He also, along with fellow baseball player Dusty Baker, invented the high-five hand gesture. He was a multi-talented athlete whose memory is kept alive by the Oakland, California LGBTQ Community Center's Glenn Burke Wellness Center. American physician Marie Equi dedicated her life to providing care for low-income and poor patients. She provided birth control information and abortions, although both were illegal at the time. She was also a political activist who campaigned for civic and economic reform, the right to vote, and the 8-hour workday. Feridun Farrokhzad was an Iranian entertainer, radio and TV host, poet and writer, and humanitarian. His popular TV shows and music still circulate on several media platforms. He was forced into exile in Germany and was murdered for his political stance against the Islamic Republic government of Iran. Federico Garcia Lorca was a Spanish poet, playwright, and theater director. As a political activist, he fought against fascism in Spain and was ultimately murdered by Francisco Franco's army. American poet Allen Ginsberg was a leading figure in the beat and counterculture movements of the 1950s and 1960s. As an activist, he campaigned against materialism and sexual repression. He inspired entertainers and musicians with his anti-war protests. Keith Haring was an American artist and political activist. His pop art was a celebration of the graffiti art culture of the 1980s. He addressed social and political issues like homosexuality and AIDS, and he used his art to advocate for safe sex and AIDS awareness. Harry Hay was an English writer and cultural icon. His work defined the term LGBTQ as a cultural identity. In 1950, he founded the Mattachine Society, the first LGBTQ rights organization in the United States. Barbara Jordan was the first Southern African-American Congresswoman. She gained national attention with her stirring speech during the impeachment hearings for President Richard Nixon. In 1976, she became the first African-American and the first woman to deliver a keynote speech at a Democratic National Convention. Christine Jorgensen was an American celebrity who was the first famous transgender female. She worked as a nightclub entertainer and actress. She was known for her wit and her honesty. She negotiated exclusive rights to her life story and used her fame to advocate for transgender people. Frida Kahlo was a Mexican painter whose artwork represents Mexican indigenous culture and uncompromising depictions of the female experience. She was the first Mexican artist to sell a painting to the Louvre Museum in Paris and the first Hispanic woman to be featured on a U.S. postal stamp. Del Martin was an American feminist and gay rights activist. In 1955, she and her lifelong partner Phyllis Lyon founded the Daughters of Bilitis, the first political and social organization for lesbians in the United States. They also co-founded health clinics and shelters for battered women in San Francisco. They were together for 54 years and were the first couple married in a ceremony officiated by San Francisco Mayor Gavin Newsom on June 16, 2008, the day when same-sex marriage became legally recognized in the state of California. Freddie Mercury was the flamboyant lead singer and songwriter for the British rock band Queen. He is considered one of the greatest lead singers in the history of rock music and was admired for his 4-octave vocal range. Freddie was the first rock star to come out publicly and to announce an AIDS diagnosis. His legacy includes the Mercury Phoenix Trust, which was established by Queen and their manager Jim Beach to raise funds for AIDS awareness and treatment. Yukio Mishima was a Japanese playwright, poet, film director, and actor. He is considered to be one of the most important Japanese authors of the 20th century. He was a candidate for the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1968. His works focused on breaking cultural norms with topics on death, political change, and sexual taboos. Sally Ride was an American astronaut and astrophysicist. In 1983, she was the first American woman to travel into space on the Space Shuttle Challenger. She and her lifelong partner, Dr. Tam O'Shaughnessy, founded Sally Ride Science to promote learning and careers in science, math, engineering, technology, and the arts. Bayard Rustin was an American civil rights activist. He was a trusted advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and counseled Dr. King on the techniques of nonviolent protest. He is known as the chief organizer of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in August 1963. He advocated for LGBT causes later in his career. Jose Sarria was a Colombian-born political activist. He was the most popular performer at the Black Cat nightclub in San Francisco, and he used his popularity to campaign for public office. In 1961, he was the first openly gay person to run for public office in the United States as a candidate for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Gertrude Stein was an American writer who spent most of her life in France. She and her partner, Alice B. Toklas, were the most famous openly lesbian couple in the world. Gertrude Stein challenged literary traditions and was one of the most revolutionary experimenters with language. Her most famous story, Miss Fur and Miss Skeen, mentioned the word gay 136 times. It was one of the first times in literature that the word was used to refer to a homosexual relationship. Alan Turing was a British scientist, mathematician, logician, and cryptanalyst. He is widely known as the father of modern computer science. He helped end World War II by breaking the German Enigma code, enabling the Allies to defeat the Nazis. He was criminally prosecuted for being homosexual and died by suicide in 1954. He was pardoned by Queen Elizabeth II in 2013. Chavela Vargas was a Costa Rican singer known for her renditions of Mexican ranchera songs and other Latin American music. To support herself, she sang on the streets in Mexico. Eventually, she became a professional singer and was well known for dressing as a man, smoking cigars, drinking heavily, and chasing women. She recorded over 80 albums and was a huge star known all over the world. Wiwa was a Zuni Native American from New Mexico. They were a weaver, potter, artist, and the most famous Ihimana in history. Ihimana are male-bodied people who take on the cultural and ceremonial roles usually performed by women. Wiwa was a cultural ambassador for Native Americans and an educator for settlers, teachers, and anthropologists. Oscar Wilde was an Irish playwright, poet, and novelist. He was known for his wit and flamboyant clothing. He became famous for his novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and his many comedic plays, including The Importance of Being Earnest and Lady Windermere's Fan. He was prosecuted for gross indecency and was imprisoned for 2 years. He was officially pardoned in 2017. Tennessee Williams was an American playwright who became famous for his ability to depict real people and experiences on stage. He is considered to be one of the 3 most important American playwrights. His best-known works are The Glass Menagerie, A Streetcar Named Desire, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Many of his plays were adapted into films. Virginia Woolf was a British novelist, essayist, and publisher. She is regarded as one of the foremost literary figures of the 20th century. She experimented with several literary devices, including stream of consciousness and free association. Her most famous works are Orlando, Mrs. Dalloway, and To the Lighthouse. One notable absence on the Rainbow Honor Walk is politician Harvey Milk. He is honored by a plaque in front of his former office on Castro Street. 8 more plaques will be added soon, and another 24 honorees have been chosen for future installation. To know more about the Rainbow Honor Walk, visit rainbowhonorwalk.org and consider the following resources on our website, gwinnettpl.org. Thank you for watching.